Welcome to the Echo Essentials podcast.
I'm Dave Dale.
And I'm Scott Clark. Today we're talking with Anthony Rota. So we'll also touch base on whether any good cheer has spilled over from the new year for Dave. Doubt it. Anthony Rota will talk candidly about being an MPP for the last 12 years. And I made a call on an edit, and I don't think Dave is too happy about that. More about that coming up, but first, a word from our episode sponsor, North Bay Toyota.
It's time to Toyota at North Bay Toyota. Attention truck lovers, have you been Tundra struck? The powerful and dependable Toyota Tundra is the new definition of grit. Ask us about amazing lease deals on a 2025 Tundra Double Cab SR 4-wheel drive and experience ingenious levels of capability, technology, and refinement. Or maybe you're an SUV lover? Take advantage of a limited shipment of 2025 RAV4s and discover the perfect blend of style, comfort, and efficiency in a compact SUV that ignites your desire to explore. Right now, get excellent lease deals on the Toyota RAV4 LE all-wheel drive and more. It's time to Toyota at North Bay Toyota, 640 McEwen, or online at northbaytoyota.com for details.
Well, Dave, Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
How come you look grumpy like right out of the gate in our first show in the new year?
Oh, that's my natural inclination.
Yeah. Did you have a nice break?
Well, it wasn't much of one. I had a bunch of stuff to do, but it was all right.
Did you cut some wood?
I cut wood. I stacked wood. I split wood. Yeah.
Do you do that like all year?
Yeah, I try to space it out so that it's like an exercise program. At least once a week anyways.
Huh. How many cords did you go through in a year?
I only burn about probably 12 cords maybe.
Oh, but my gosh. That's a lot of wood.
That includes the gazebo fires outside and the sauna, right? I got to keep a sauna running once a week. So, yeah. Well,
we're going to have a little bit of banter here about our Anthony Rota interview because it was after the recording. First of all, I thought he spoke really candidly. I think we asked a lot of really good questions. I was actually quite surprised how candid he was with a lot of different things.
Yeah, he's very open and willing to talk. It sounded good.
So here's what happened in the last week, though. Anthony reached out to me. He says, I'm a little uncomfortable with one of the segments in it, and I was wondering if you would edit it out. And I go on. Which segment? And of course, it was the segment that is sort of core to it, and that was about the what happened in Parliament and him stepping down as Speaker of the House over the Hunka incident. And I tried, Dave, a couple of times to was like, okay, what if we cut this? And he was pretty adamant. He listened and he said, look, I just don't want. This is going to open up a bit of a can of worms, more specifically for my family and for the Hunka family that have taken such a massive beating personally. And he says, I'm asking you if you would just remove it. I said, well, if we do, Anthony, two things. I'm going to have to tell Dave after I do it because Dave will not be happy about this. And second of all, we have to talk about it a bit. So let me ask you this. It's been done, but here's the other side of it. Anthony has promised that he's going to come back in and speak really openly about that incident, but he needs a little bit of time to pass, right? Was I wrong?
Not in your final decision, actually. You probably could have pulled me in as co-host to discuss it as you were contemplating what to do. Mm-hmm. I have a lot of this experience doing this, negotiating with somebody that you have interviewed, right? So it's not that unusual.
It's not? I thought you were going to be so upset at me. I thought like you were going to be really, really. And so I was just like, the reason I didn't, I honestly felt that it was black and white to you, and that was not going to happen. And you and I were going to go head to head, and it wasn't going to be great, right? That's what I thought how it was going to play out, and I didn't want it to play out that way. But I didn't know that this happens more than I realize.
Well, I'm not surprised. There's a bunch of different ways to handle something like that, and having him promise to come back and discuss the issue, and us being able to talk about the edit in this banter before his interview solves a lot of the journalistic issues I would have, because we have addressed it. When I was telling people we had a year-end and career-end interview with Anthony Rota, the first question people asked me was, did he mention the hunka thing?
Of course.
Right.
It was key.
It's key. So, and there's some hardcore journalists that would say the interview is worthless without addressing that issue. Like, I'm not sure if you saw the Joe Rogan interview with Trump before the election.
Yeah, I watched the whole thing.
It was a terrible interview because Joe didn't question or come back, and he just let him speak, and there was absolutely no sort of effort to put him into a spot where he had to address things that he would feel uncomfortable to. It was an open interview. Trump just had said 3 hours worth of whatever Trump says.
Yeah.
Whatever. But people in journalism and viewers would be critical of that interview because it was just basically he gave them a platform without making them pay for a little bit of it, right?
I get what you're saying.
Right, so if we just had an interview with Anthony, we never even brought it up, never discussed it, stayed away from it, it's too hot button. I don't think the viewers would appreciate that very much. But the thing is, and I was very impressed that he did address it in the interview.
He did. He was really quite candid.
And I believe he's making a mistake by wanting to pull it out. But I understand with the timing of what's going on also in Ottawa and his end of his career kind of thing. Like I'm sure he would like to just sort of go a little bit more quietly into the night, or at least keep open the doors for some communications for his future endeavors. So I can, and I believe that he's worried about the family not wanting it brought up, but we're bringing it up right now.
Yeah.
So it's brought up.
Right.
And it's actually, I think he's making it more of an issue than it would be if, because it was buried about 2/3 into the interview.
I would agree. I would agree with that statement. I don't think it was that. The one part I took from it was, not going into all the details, was it wasn't so much about the Hunka family at all. It was more about how so many people didn't have his back, and he took the brunt of it when there was other higher powers that were well aware of what was going on.
And everybody knows that, and that's been discussed. And
Yeah.
I've voiced that same opinion several times myself.
But let me.
I have a lot of respect for the tenure Rota had as a representative and how he handled many of his issues. Like I've come away from some interviews, old style, where we used to take notes. And during the interview, the guy's like, oh, can I rephrase that? Oh, yeah, you can rephrase it. Okay. Some journalists wouldn't. Like it's not all journalists operate the same way. Like I think we're all heading to the same direction, but we get there different. And if you would have said, no, we recorded it, we're going to use it, I'm sorry that you feel this way, and we're unable to convince them that this was the better way to go. I think in the end, all we do is disappoint him because he's going to feel bad about it. We want him to like the interview, right?
Yeah,
as well.
Promote it. And my other piece of it, Dave, was that in what we're doing here, we've been doing this for a year now, or over a year now, and I really want to build this level of trust that people. Here's my conundrum, and I want to talk this out. I want people to feel that there's a level of trust they have when they come in here, that they're not going to. It's not a gotcha type thing. I've even watched some of the interviews you've done with Small Town Times, which I find sometimes can get even a touch edgier, but it's never gotcha. Like it isn't gotcha. So I respect that, and I don't think.
Yeah, I think that's my style, and I think that's a good style. But others have other styles.
But here's I'm going to speak out of both sides of my mouth. We can't, moving forward, we can't really have a situation where the person that we're interviewing is editing the interview. right?
Oh, definitely not. Yeah.
But have I screwed that up that way in doing this?
Well, I think his promise to come back and address the issue in a more fulsome way, and actually we may have a little bit more interesting, interview. Because while it was addressed, and I thought he did a good job, we didn't actually. There was more in the background, and we all know there's a little bit more. If he's promising to give us a little bit more, and it's kind of exclusive to us to be able to tell the story in a fulsome way, as a separate from his career interview, that's a trade-off.
Yeah. It's because he said right after he had sent me a note, and he says, I really enjoyed the experience. Like it was really good, and then like it so super positive. And then it was maybe a day later, he had sent something to me. He was going somewhere, and he said, hey, yeah, it was on the weekend, and he said, hey, can we talk about? And then I guess he was just like ruminating with him, right, about because that was part of at the core of why we were asking the question about that incident was more about what is the effects of being at the center of can I say global incident?
I'd say shitstorm, but yeah.
Yeah. Like that, but it was globally.
Yeah, international.
An international shitstorm.
International incident.
Yeah, yes. If this is on Kojiko, I'm sure they just edited that out or Ben did. But I can't fathom the pressure on your family and all the different things, even though he's received lots of support and different things, but the ramifications of all the stuff that we don't see and what happens behind the scenes, that's what fascinates me about something that big that just took off like that.
But the other thing is that we got a good headline out of it, out of the interview, aside from the hunka thing. So by him actually naming somebody that he thought would be good leadership potential for the Liberals, that was a coup for us and for the interview. It made for a nice little headline on the newsletter. I noticed in the interviews that he did following that, he had no comment about the leadership issue. So we got something out of it.
Okay.
And there's something of depth there. So
here's what I'll do promising you going forward. That I, as co-host in the show, I promise that something like this comes up. Nothing's decided unless you're involved in that process. So I
accept that. That's great.
I apologize, and I promise going forward. I was just,
you had a lot of stuff going on, and
I was juggling a couple of balls in the background, and
this was a big thing. I forgive you.
Thanks, Dave. And so I apologize for that, and I want other people that are we have a lot of loyal people that listen and watch this show. I want them to know that again, Dave had no part in it, and I've had to deal with the blowback of that. So,
not really blowback.
No, you've been fantastic. Like I thought you were going to punch me in the nose when I sat you down. I was fully prepared. But you also explained that this isn't highly unusual. Even would it have been even in the heyday of newspaper? Would there ever be like big?
Well,
that you might have to negotiate.
Well,
or do you ever remember one locally?
There have been
talk about.
there have been times that there have been a managing editor or a publisher called post interview with somebody that didn't feel good about it, but we had a little bit harder line on some of that stuff.
I bet.
Yeah, and but also there was some. I can't think of a specific example of where the newsroom was upset with a publisher management decision to pull or avoid or retract, take something out. I've had some issues with some decisions by editors and publishers that on different issues, different things and conflicts. But no, I can't think of anything where something this obvious was taken out of an interview. Mm-hmm. But we didn't do podcast interviews, and we didn't have this type of style where we had to like what we're doing here is we're trying to address the issues in a civil way as much as possible and make it comfortable for people in town who are in positions of representing people and companies and others to talk about an issue with some comfort. No, there was a couple that we've done where people asked us to see it before it was published, and I just said, no, that's not how we operate. And there's a reason for that.
Yeah, what is that? Why is that?
Well, if somebody sees what you're about to publish and then doesn't like it and gets a lawyer involved, then we have to get a lawyer involved because they can make particular legal moves where if you go ahead with it without more homework and work, it interrupts the flow as well. Like we don't have, in the newspaper business, you don't have a week to deal with somebody getting cold feet.
Right.
Or being upset. The interview's done, it has to go, and it's news. You handle it maybe a little bit different. You might tweak it a little bit just to avoid what they're concerned about, but still address the issue. There's 100 things you could do. But you never really show somebody what you're about to publish and say, what do you think? Because that just causes all kinds of problems.
It's
they have to trust you. And that's what you want to do. And that's what I told a few people. I said, trust me, I don't want you to be upset. I want people to be informed, and I'm going to do my best to make us both look good. That's what my line is. Yeah.
In the time we've been doing this, I actually had no idea how is challenging the word that when you go into some really fulsome conversations and things are said that it's, you're putting a lot on the line. The people, the ownership of the Echo Network is putting a lot on the line because anything that's said here could be challenged. And like you said, you bring in some very powerful people or organizations or you question power, then they can flex their muscles pretty quickly. And that can be scary.
Well, I saw one of our podcasts in the minutes of a meeting of an organization where they were considering getting a lawyer, right? Yeah, it gets touchy. It gets touchy. But that's why we try to do it in a civil way that's sort of a mature sort of look at things and discussion, right? And that when people are here for an interview, if it seems like they're reticent at first, I say, listen, if at the very end of the interview you feel that you said something that's wrong or that you'd like to, take another stab at, tell us before you leave so that we don't go through the process and get it ready.
Right.
And expect to be publishing it because we have a schedule to keep, right?
Yeah.
So don't do it afterwards. Do it now.
Yeah.
And then we can address it.
So let's get into the interview, but before we get there, we want to thank, the people that keep us striving along here, and those are great local community supporters, including Source for Sports. Local community, that's their focus. Source for Sports North Bay is not only a community hub for all things sports here in North Bay, but they also want to be part of you and your family's sports journey. So before I get into all of this, I just want to tell one of my favorite sort of Source for Sports stories. So I hadn't played hockey since I was like 6 or 7. So I've lost the ability to skate, all those different things. And a buddy said, Scott, I got all the gear for you. Come on. It's just a beer league thing. None of us can really play. It's just going out. We're just skating, having a little bit of fun. I said, okay, I want to do this. I've always wanted, that was the one thing I missed was playing beer league hockey where you can go out and just hang out and stuff, right? So I went in, the only thing I needed to get, because my buddy supplied everything, and I had some skates, he says, the only thing you need to get, you got to go get a jock, right? That's the only thing you need to buy. I went, oh, well, that's easy enough, right? So I go to Source for Sports, right? So I go over, and now again, I haven't played hockey since I was like 6 or 7. So I'm looking around, and it's like, oh, okay, got them, da-da-da-da, and I take it to the cash. And this is how awesome their staff is. The person, it was a young guy on cash, and he says, oh, hi, Mr. Clark. He says, is your daughter playing hockey? And I go, no, she did at one time, but not anymore. He says, okay, you're buying this for you? I said, yes. He says, that's a Jill. I go, oh, okay. So here's what I loved about the staff. They didn't make it embarrassing. They, let's get the right one for you. Let's da-da-da-da. I'm sure it would have been funny afterwards for the staff. But here's why I love them so much. If he thought it was funny and he let me buy it, it would have been 1,000 times worse in the dressing room. Putting a Jill on. It's like, this has a funny fit to it.
I know a hockey team that you could skate with, that you would fit in with. They're called the Illegals. You know Don Wallace at all?
Yeah.
Yeah, those guys get together Wednesday nights and Friday afternoons or at Pete Pelangio, and it's all a bunch of guys that just want to have fun, and they just throw the sticks in the middle kind of thing.
Yeah.
They change the teams. There's about 40 guys that come or don't come. It'd be perfect for you.
If you're looking to get into it, get back into it, get involved with it, because we know a lot of elite people also go to Source for Sports. Make sure you go there. They have a huge product range, including a wide selection of Jills. So you can get back into it, have a lot of fun. And I want to thank Paul and his incredible team there that supports the community in so many different ways. And the level of expertise and I'll say, how do I say, confidentiality when you make a mistake,
right on.
like myself. Thank you, Source for Sports. Wherever your sports journey takes you, make sure you visit Source for Sports North Bay at 1321 Fisher Street. Paul and the team will look after you. Thanks so much, Source for Sports, and their wide selection of Jills.
Today we have a special guest, Nipissing-Timiskaming MP Anthony Rota, as he is very much looking forward to this next election.
Yeah, there's a lot of truth to that.
Anthony, thanks for coming in. First of all, hope you had a
pleasure.
Nice Christmas and New Year. So I want to ask you a little bit about how you feel right now, because Dave just mentioned this upcoming election, because you've indicated that you're at the end of the runway here, and it's time to let someone else come in. So I want to know how you're feeling about all that, and how you've always had a passion for being MP.
Yeah, no, I mean, you do your time, and then when you decide that it's over, it's over. I mean, and I decided during the last election, I promised my wife, we're knocking on doors in the last election, and she said, "This is the last time, right?" I said, "I promise." And
because she's retired, right?
She's retired. She's been retired for almost 10 years now.
Oh my!
Yeah,
okay.
So it's been good, but we could be doing a lot more stuff on our own. But no, I mean, I really enjoy what I'm doing, and it's just something that you get to a certain age. I'm 63. I'll be 64 in May. And I don't plan on doing this when I'm in my 70s. I know, and I mean, some do, bless them. I mean, they do really well at it. But no, it was just one of those things where I always said I would retire at 62. So I blew that as well. So that's gone. I didn't make that. But
the thing is, you never age, Anthony. I've seen your pictures. Every campaign, it's the exact same picture. They never change it.
The picture's the same. I just use the same picture. I'm getting older.
Well, it doesn't indicate it.
Yeah, thank you.
How many years were you in office?
Well, I was in from 2004 to 2011. Then I was rudely interrupted for 4 years, and then came back in 2015.
All right. And how long in council? You were in municipal council.
I was on council for 3 years, and then took some time off and never went back. Ended up going federally instead.
Were you after Bob Wood?
Yes, exactly.
Okay, you were right after Bob. Okay.
Exactly.
All right. And there was there a gap at all? Were the Conservatives in there at some point?
At 2011.
2011.
Yeah.
No. You're talking about Jay Aspin, right?
Yes, exactly.
Wasn't there a time? Who's the guy that owns the golf course out in
Momantha? Momantha was in there as well initially. That would have been back in.
Was that pre-Bob Wood or
1988?
That's right before
88?
Bob Wood.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. It was before Bob.
Would have won from Mo.
Beat him. Yeah.
Okay, gotcha. I remember in my early days, I arrived here in 91. There was a debate or something I was hosting. It wasn't a big thing, and I'm kind of new and in my 20s, and there was. Anyhow, the candidates all got up, and I'm wondering, I don't remember if you were there. Would you have been there around 91, 92 and around there?
I would have been, I was president of the Chamber of Commerce at the time.
Okay, so maybe it was Bob or...
Oh, sorry, no, that would have been 93 or 92.
Yeah.
Anyway,
But
it's
it
all a
might have been
blur.
Bob, but I just remember going, these people are nuts. Anybody could be an MP. They're all nuts.
Yeah, you've got some truth there.
And it's been proven and proven again and again.
Over
since.
and over again.
It's about being electable. Tell us about what your hopes are for who's coming next.
Well, I'm hoping for someone who will be the voice of Nipissing-Timiskaming in Ottawa. What we see happen often, especially in bigger centres like Toronto, Montreal, it's the voice of Ottawa in their riding. To me, it's important that the voice of the riding be heard in Ottawa. And, I mean, it's nice to get up and make speeches, but, I mean, that's all for the cameras most of the time. And it really is entertainment, not actual policy influence and actual influence on what goes on. It's important that you talk to other MPs and leaders to let them know what is going on in your riding, especially a riding like North Bay, Nipissing-Timiskaming, Timiskaming Shores. There's a lot of ground covered there, and there is a lot of difference between what goes on in the south end and the north end of the riding. You have to know it, and you have to bring it to their attention. Because, I mean, when you look at someone who is in downtown Toronto, I'm going to exaggerate, but it's almost 4 blocks and you've got your 100,000 people and then some. And then you get up here, and I've got 13,000 square kilometers in this riding in Nipissing-Timiskaming, and all of a sudden you start going to other ridings and I lose my right to complain. I mean, you're talking like hundreds of thousands of square kilometers, and people have to cover that. When you look at that and you look at what people have to report back to Ottawa, it's like, okay, if we're taking policy or new laws into consideration, let's make sure it works for everyone, not just the people in downtown Toronto or Vancouver or Montreal where the big centers are. Granted, that's where the majority of the population is, but you've got to take regional interests and regional realities into consideration when you're developing policy.
You said something earlier, and I think that's many people would say that about you, is that you were always someone who was able to stay. You could cross the aisle, like shake hands across the aisle, get things done. You were liked, hence why you were picked as speaker. In today's politics, that doesn't feel like it's an attribute anymore.
You'd be surprised. I mean, there's still a lot of people out there who are really good. Unfortunately, they're not the vocal ones, or they're not the ones who are out there screaming or yelling, and that's who the media concentrates on. I mean, the media's got I hate to say this, but the media has gone from reporting news to entertaining people. I mean, and I remember I was a kid when the 24-hour, I was a little older than a kid, but the 24-hour news channel came on. Yeah. I thought, this is great. I'm going to get to watch news whenever I want it, turn it on, and it's great. But there's air to fill. I mean, you both know media. You both know what it's like. You have to fill that space. So if you don't have anything going on or a very slow news day, you look for whatever's there and you create it. And it's become entertainment, not news reporting. And that's something that's concerned.
Well, what is media today, right? Like, I think when you first got into this, there was like, okay, especially when you came into your riding, it's like, I need to speak to the Nugget. I need to speak to Rogers. I need to speak, you knew sort of the 5 players. It's very different now.
We talk about social media. We talk about Facebook, X or Twitter. This podcast, for instance, I mean, there's so many little bits of information coming from different places, which I guess initially, when you look at it, thinking, okay, we're going to get more information, which is good. But how much of it is actual certified information? And it's coming in, and people are brought in different directions. And we have a tendency as human beings to say, okay, what's the easy information to take and run with? And that's what we're taking, or not everyone, but a majority will look at it and say, oh, that looks easy enough to take. Okay, we'll take it. No scrutiny, no looking at it, checking facts. It's like, this must be gospel. It came from the internet.
Mm-hmm. Interestingly, what I see in the evolution of it, because I came up through print, right?
Yep.
And that was a whole different game than broadcast, TV, podcasting. I see the podcasters now very much having to rely on what the media do generate, because they're the only ones actually still trying to do some investigative stuff. And the commentary is on whether the investigation was good enough and what they missed. I see it as an add-on, but it's this tendency of people to go to where they're comfortable is what one of the problems with internet is that you gather where you're comfortable more often than you gather where you're uncomfortable. And that's why the divisions sort of happen, and then you end up in these vacuums. I think, like Bill Parfit was saying the other day, you dropped in on his 100th birthday on Saturday. He was saying that democracy needs to be in the curriculum more so to teach people their freedoms, their rights, and media. He didn't get into the details, but basically he wanted smarter voters and the mandatory voting, of course.
Actually, we talked about that when I wished him a happy birthday. I dropped in on him and he said, what we have to do is bring mandatory voting. And, initially when I first heard of this is going back a long time ago, I thought, what a terrible idea, because you've got people, you're forcing them, they're going to screw up their ballot. But anywhere where they've done that, people know they have to vote. They start taking it seriously. The first few elections are hell. I mean, people are just going in protesting. But once you know you're coming up to it, you want to make your vote count. Then what happens is you start thinking, okay, what do I really believe in? And what Bill said makes a lot of sense. It's an educated electorate. That's what we need. Someone who knows, or people who know why they're voting. Not because, I like the color of his shirt, or I like his smile, or you want more substance there.
And you want to teach them BS radar.
Yeah, oh man,
right?
That's not an easy one to teach. And I've seen people get away with a lot of stuff where you just shake your head and you think, okay, you got to be kidding me. Somebody believes that, and everybody chases towards it because it's easy and it sounds good.
There's an example that was mentioned a little bit, to be newsy, when you're talking about representing your riding.
Yes.
And then we mentioned losing to Jay Aspin in 2011. And that was the election, isn't it, where you voted with the party on the gun registry?
That was a part of it.
Yeah.
A big part of it was Michael Ignatieff had zero appeal to people. I mean, Michael was a very bright man, and I supported him wholeheartedly. Mm-hmm. But he just didn't have that charisma that grabbed people. And the gun registry was part of it. But there was a whole lot of factors that fell into that one. I mean, when you look at it, there was against Michael. The whole the whole movement that was there was against him, and people didn't like him. So, okay, that's part of it. We're seeing that now with the Liberals, with Justin. But the other thing too is we had an election that was fairly long. That was the other one. But I mean, the robocalls. Remember the robocalls?
Right. Yeah, I do remember
North
those.
Bay was one of the central ones for the robocalls, where we were getting people calling up and saying, quit calling me. Quit having your people call us at all hours of the night, midnight, 1 o'clock in the morning, and then they're rude to us. Okay, so we would call to Ottawa. The hell are you doing? We never made the calls. Yeah, right. Okay, come on. So something... Later found out what robocalls were and everything. The morning of the election, normally when we're getting everything organized, all of a sudden a bunch of calls go out to people, telling people to vote in another place. So people went out to vote, and they seemed to know who was voting which way because they were doing polling. So if ever you get a call and somebody says, how are you voting? And you say, whichever party, the other party is probably collecting that information. And what they did in that one is that morning, thousands of calls went out to people telling them to go to another place. And then they were calling us saying, what's going on? We went, to hell with it, I'm not voting. And you saw pieces like that come together, and you think, okay, it's not just one factor. And then there's the protest vote. People were just, I don't like your party. I'm voting against you. I'm voting green just as a protest, and or orange. And it's just one thing after another. And the other one was out in Bear Island, which usually votes very liberal. Mm-hmm. Jack Layton's daughter had a cottage out there. He spent the whole summer, better part of the summer, on Bear Island. It went orange. And I could understand that. Yeah. But, I mean, when you start adding up all the different factors, you think, okay, I only lost by 18 votes. I didn't do too badly.
North Bay Echo is proud to partner with Twigs Coffee Roasters, a part of the community since 1995. Twigs offers a wide selection of quality beans, fresh roasted in-house every day. Find your favorite specialty drinks at our espresso bar, Rejuvenate with freshly squeezed juice or treat yourself to mouth-watering selections from our gourmet deli. And don't forget our irresistible fresh baked goods, including uncompromising gluten-free options. Twigs has 5 locations to serve you, from North Bay to Sturgeon Falls to Sudbury. Order online for pickup at twigs.ca. And coming soon, you'll be able to order fresh roasted coffee beans direct to your doorstep from our distribution center in North Bay.
How much do you recall in those early years about what you've learned, like your mindset going in those early years? Because I'm assuming you're super optimistic and change and how I'm going to do great things for this riding and how I'm going to really put my stamp in Ottawa. You get there, and there's a whole other thing that I don't think any of us understand, the politics of being in politics. So did you vote, like, from a leadership standpoint for Ignatieff?
Yes.
How did that affect you politically? Like those things that go on.
Oh, yeah. No, I understand what you're saying.
The politics within the politics, right?
Oh, yeah, no. And it's exactly it, too. I mean, when Michael was in, I mean, I was right up there. I was chair of the National Caucus, and I was part of the decision-making. And like I said, the man is brilliant. Just didn't have the uptake and the buy-in from people. Charisma, I guess, is one thing.
And he got labeled as an American academic.
Too. Oh yeah. I mean, the slander that happened there was
he got out-politicked.
Yeah, exactly.
So tell me, like, with what's happening right now, like there's probably, well, with everything's happening with the Prime Minister right now, and I know you're sort of on your way out, so you can say whatever you want. Well, I'm not asking you to say that, but I mean, in Ottawa, the politicking that's going on right now, it would be incredible. Who's going to be in power next? Will he leave? Will the it's incredible.
There's a million questions that we could ask and still have no answers to. And depending on how things play, and politics is one of those games or one of those systems that you never know what's going to happen. Somebody could be down and out today, and then tomorrow, all of a sudden, he's reincarnated God. It's amazing how things work, and it really depends on the media. You mentioned about the politicking and the actually more slander, I think, than anything else on all sides. But go back in history and you look at what happened when Brian Mulroney was in there. The Liberals did the same thing to him, maybe not as effective as the Conservatives are doing now. But there was a lot of that going on back then too. Mm-hmm. And in the House, there was quite a bit of ruckus back then. There is now. And it's one of those things where you look at it and you think, okay, where are we going with this and where we're going to be in a year? It's hard to say. And I think that's where Justin is looking at it and the Prime Minister is looking at it and saying, well, things will probably turn around. We'll see how that goes. I
got a question.
Sure.
If Justin Trudeau steps down as he should, I think, who are 3 names that we should take a real solid look at for Liberal leadership?
I can give you one.
Give me one.
Dominic LeBlanc.
Okay, why?
Oh.
I just think he does an excellent job at controlling things and controlling the situation. He's very straight with people, and he'll give you answers. He doesn't dance around. And I see some of the other ones coming up who are looking at François-Philippe Champagne is very good. He's a close second. And that would be my 2 choices, really, for leadership at this point. We don't know who else is coming in. And
where's Dominic from?
Dominic's from New Brunswick.
Oh, okay.
And he understands rural politics, and he understands people. I mean, sometimes when they come from large cities, it's more about the party. I've always looked at it, it's about the person in the riding. And you had asked earlier if there was a candidate coming up for any party. It's to be in your riding and understand what your riding is about and represent them in Ottawa. It's not about coming here and giving you the message from the Ottawa.
Yeah,
it's
from
about
on high.
Yeah, exactly. It's no. We don't need lectures. What we need is Ottawa to understand what's going on in our ridings, so that the policy and the laws that are passed reflect what's going on in the country.
Mm. And is there strategically, if you got to, I'm not asking you to pick a person, what would be I would say a politician from what area would have the greatest influence for, I'll say, the Liberal Party to succeed? Because right now it doesn't look great, whatever's about to happen to the Liberal Party. But does that politician need to be from Quebec? Could someone come out of, it won't happen, Alberta, I would say, like West? Or,
I've seen stranger things happen. I mean, and who knows? I mean, maybe there is someone in the back, in the wings in Alberta. Not many Liberals in Alberta, but there might be one who comes out and all of a sudden, wow, this is our new Messiah, and everybody follows. And that might be a way of getting some of that Alberta vote. I don't know, but no, it's normally it goes Quebec or Francophone, Anglophone, and you try to go back and forth between the two. But at this point, I don't think there's any formula. I don't see it anyways. I think getting someone who is very straight with people and very honest is who we want to look at.
Well, you'd also want to look at somebody that can match up against the Conservative leader in ability. And I'm not sure if Pierre has charisma or what, but he has something. And he's going to be somebody that you're going to really want to put in their place in a debate, right? Somebody that can handle that and also do it in a way that doesn't look too stiff and controlled.
Exactly.
Right? So that's a big part of it.
And that's where, when you look at it, if you see someone who's out there and when they're in the process, or like someone like Pierre is very good at bringing stuff up and repeating it over and over again. He's got the training. He's been doing it since he was a kid, and he's very good at it. But what you need is someone who's going to say, no, look, this is what the facts are, and do it credibly and do it with facts, not just calling names. Because if you just start calling each other names, then you lose all respect for both sides.
There was massive hope, I think, when Justin Trudeau came in. There was huge. I think everybody, or a lot of people, were feeling it. What do you think was the turning point for the country? Was it the convoy?
No, you know what? I don't think the convoy was it. It could be a part of it. I'm convinced, and I've been saying this for years, long before Justin or the Prime Minister got into power, is anybody who's there more than 8 years, people are tired. Whether you did a wonderful job or a horrible job. I mean, I look at Brian Mulroney in hindsight. Yeah. I thought he did a great job.
Look at all the stuff he did, really.
Yeah, he did a lot. And he was one of these people who didn't take one side or the other. He just did what was right and what he thought was right. But he was there for 8 years, and people just get tired of him.
And then, I agree with that statement.
That's the one thing that the Americans have developed well.
Yeah.
Is after 8 years and you're out. With their system, they can do it. With ours, it's not so easy.
Yeah. No, I agree with that statement.
Yeah.
Let me, sorry, Dave, did you have something you wanted to add to that? Or
No, I think actually I was going to ask the question you're about to ask. Go ahead.
Highs and lows, I was going to ask.
Yeah.
What do you tell us over the time? Like, you've seen lots, you've brought lots to our riding. Tell us some of the things you're super proud of, and maybe tell us about something that, gosh, I wish I could have got that done.
Yeah, that's a good question. Basically, on the stuff I'm very proud of is I hear from a lot of people, regardless of party they're in. We were at your office, and you helped us with a passport, a pension. And this is things that they're not grand, they're not huge, but it means a lot to every individual person. And to me, that's important. Mm-hmm. And to hear that and to know that that's happening, I tell my staff, I said, okay, when someone calls and they're very frustrated, they might be taking it out on you, but it's not your fault. They're at their wits' end. Mm-hmm. They've probably tried everything under the sun, and it's not working for them. How can we help them? And sometimes we can't, but most of the times we can help them get to the next step. And sometimes, or often, it's nothing very complicated, but they just didn't know what to do. Mm-hmm. And by doing that for them, then all of a sudden they're at the next level and they're happy. They're leaving happy. They've got what they needed, whether it's a disability pension, whether it's Canada pension, passports, you name it. It's not very difficult. So there's stuff like that. To me, that is what being an MP is all about, is making sure that the people are well served. Of course, bringing in stuff. I mean, we've got bridges that were brought in Cobalt and Coleman Township, a dam that was built in Latchford. We've got I'm sorry, they're not arena. It's a community center that we've got here in town. That's $35 million total federal money. That's the largest amount ever received at the federal level by the city of North Bay. I think that's something we can all be proud of.
Did you know that, Dave? I always thought it was 25.
It's
25 plus another 9 for some infrastructure.
Just
around
under
it.
35. Yeah, exactly.
Okay. That's awesome.
So it works out really well. And then when you see that kind of money coming in and you see what's being done, it really works out well.
So my question to that,
Yes.
to those, say the dam, the bridge, the community center, I just, I think maybe like many people, they might have assumptions like, I can just make that happen. What kind of fighting happens in the background to make that happen?
That's where a good MP makes a difference, where you're in the background talking with people, talking with the ministers, talking with the staff. How do we get this moving? Can we make sure that this is still on the board? I mean, a prime example is the arena or the community center that we've got going up in North Bay. Dominic LeBlanc was actually the minister at the time, and he was in charge, and we were talking, and the city was having a little bit of a challenge, a dilemma on what to do.
Well, 12 years it's taken him, right?
Well, I had to keep it alive in Ottawa.
Right.
I'm texting Dominic from my phone. Dominic, we've got to keep this going. Can I get an answer soon? Yeah, I'll get to you next week. I said, I might not be, I'm not going to be available next week. And Dominic says, yeah, okay, no problem. I'm getting to it. He says, where are you? I said, I'm in the hospital. I'm about to get open heart surgery. I'm in my gown, and before I go to the surgery, I'm texting him to, come on, guys, give me an answer, quick.
Man.
So you need that kind of commitment. And little things that you go after, whether it's housing. Okay, look, Toronto got the housing. What the hell's wrong with North Bay? Or what's wrong with New Liskeard or Timiskaming Shores? And you've got to have that ability to talk. And one thing we often find in politics is the guy who makes the best speech is not doing his riding any favors. I mean, he's doing himself favors, and they're out there talking. They're doing a great job talking up themselves.
Little birdie told me there is some housing money coming from you guys.
There is some big money coming.
It's about time, right?
It's about time. No, it's and what happened is they came up with the housing policy. And there's the conversation I had with the housing minister a number of times. I know Mark's there right next door, and we both hit him at the same time a couple of times where, okay, that's nice that you got the money, but it's gone to Toronto, Montreal, Vancouver. What about the rest of us? And finally, it's coming. It hasn't been announced yet, but it's a substantial amount for the area.
What do you, sorry, I just want to finish this last piece, was about, is there anything... gosh, I wish I could have taken that across the finish line, or...
How do you mean?
But like maybe there was
a
something...
low point, maybe.
Just like something that you didn't achieve that you wish that you could have got across the finish line, or...
I'm trying to think here. Now, pretty well everything fell into place. I mean, you talk about low points. I mean, high point, of course, was being elected the first time. I was thrilled with that. Second high point was being elected speaker. And then being elected speaker a second time, which is really something that is not that common, because sometimes, like being speaker, and as I often said, in order to be a good speaker, you've got to upset both sides equally. So, I mean, and you've got to do it with respect. The low point was, of course, when I stepped down as speaker. I mean, those things happen. As a friend of mine who happens to be Jewish in Toronto said, no good deed goes unpunished in politics. Like the whole idea that the intentions were good.
Let's talk about the military file, since we were talking about that. There was, in my time, because during your time, I was honorary colonel, and I got to hang out with you on a few different occasions, but it felt to me that was a really important file when you were doing Veterans Affairs, and even with people in this area, it felt very personal to you. Tell us a little bit about that.
It is. I mean, I've always believed that if someone puts their life on the line to protect you, and to stand up for the country. See, I'm getting choked up just thinking about it.
I didn't mean to choke you out, but I know you're very proud and passionate
All
about
of a sudden, we've got people who put their lives on the line, and you can't abandon them. And we've had a lot of situations where people come to our office, my pension got cut off, or you get a call from Veterans Affairs over and over again, is your leg grown back yet? No, I lost my leg. What kind of stupid question is that?
Really?
But it's stuff like that you really got to get onto and take care of. But I mean, PTSD, we did a lot of work when I was on the Veterans Affairs. I was chair of the subcommittee on Veterans Affairs, but I was also on the Veterans Affairs, the Defense Committee, when we looked into PTSD and tried to get it bumped up. And sitting down with usually a young man who has been through hell, and there's a blank look that I can't describe. That person's gone.
And you can see it
in
real time.
Exactly. And that's something that we have to look at and take care of.
Did you ever meet Dave? Who was
Lirichelle is
Lirichelle? You did?
I did.
And because I went to Anthony, we were up at the 100th anniversary when we had Mike Harrison, right? Harrison had Mike in here. And I remember that. I was emotional. It was one of our biggest podcasts, by the way, about him getting the Victoria Cross. And he said, I think it was off. I don't know if it was on or off. We said, we got to go to Anthony. Anthony will do this. And I went up to you right away and you were like, how do I help? How do I make this happen? Tell us a little bit about that encounter with this incredible man.
Well, I mean, here's a guy who was a young kid who was blown apart trying to save people. Save his own comrades, and he was with us in Afghanistan doing his job, and what they were after was the Victoria Cross for him, and that's something that I talked to the Minister of Veterans Affairs, the Minister of Defense, a number of ministers of defense. I talked to the colonel in charge of the medals, trying to get everything in place, and our medals in Canada are in a strange place. They wanted to get them away from political influence, and they wanted to get them out of military influence, so they put them aside where there's a group who's taking care of it. And they want to make sure people don't get them for nothing, because after, I guess it was the First World War, people were getting different medals just because they knew someone. And they wanted to avoid that, so they made it very difficult and put a lot of barriers in. But it's to the point now where it has to be revised and it has to be looked at, because it really is difficult for people like Jesse to have gotten the Victoria Cross. Now, he did get the Silver Star? Silver Star. And the part of the argument, he got the Silver Star, but and it's not the same thing. It's similar, but it's not the same thing.
So what's the name of the group that decides on the medals that we have to?
I was afraid you were going to ask me that. You'll have to.
Because I just wanted to get it on the record and say, we need to change this.
I'll get Google out.
Okay. Well, I'll find out and put it in the description for sure. I just wanted to say my biggest disappointment in the Liberals was electoral reform that was promised and not given. That really impacted me as a voter, because I trusted Justin Trudeau to follow through with that. What happened and why can't we reform electoral process away from the first past the post?
Yeah, the whole system is one that has been with us for years, first past the post. And one of the biggest problems they had, Francis Scarpaleggia was the president, or the chair of that committee. And I remember talking with him, saying, okay, what's going on? He says, we can't get anybody to agree on one system. Everybody wanted change, but nobody wanted the same change. I mean, the Conservatives wanted to stay with first past the post. The NDP wanted proportional. The Greens wanted proportional. I forget what the Bloc wanted. I think they wanted, I'm not sure what they wanted. And the Liberals wanted a preferential ballot. Whereas, if you don't get your first choice, then your vote goes to the second one. And it's just the way they run candidate campaigns. So, and then they had a young minister who, Karina Gould was just a young minister at the time, and she hasn't had much success in much else she's done. She's now the House leader, and you can see how that's going. But when you look at the whole thing, it was just they couldn't come on to what they wanted. Everybody knew what they didn't want, but nobody could agree on what they wanted. And that was one of the biggest
Dave,
things.
why is that important to you?
I think it's the root problem we have with the party system that we have right in place, where it's you end up making a vote because you don't want to lose your vote, and your vote doesn't count because you support an individual with a party that's not in the first two, right? Or third, right? Distant third.
Yeah.
So you end up with you have to corrupt your vote to make it worthwhile, right? So you're voting against something instead of for something. And so I think my personal opinion is that you'd have more people interested in the electoral process if they knew their vote counted for something.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and to a certain extent, even now with the first past the post, depending on who comes in second in that riding, so it does influence how people vote, how people think. Mm-hmm. So it does make a difference that way, but not as much as what you're saying. The other one that the Liberals, the one downfall here for the preferential ballot is where you rate your 1, 2, 3s. So if number 3 or 4 falls off, then it gets added to the other person, whatever your second choice was. And whoever gets more than 51% ends up with the seat. The problem with that one is usually people will take, if they're voting right, they'll go to the center. If they're voting left, they'll go to the center. They're not going to skip over. But I think with time what happens is you end up with people voting for people, not for parties. And the other thing too is if, let's say the three of us are running against each other and we want that second choice from Dave's ballots, we're not going to run them down and call them names. It'll probably level things out a little bit more, and people will be a little bit more cordial to each other, and hopefully discuss facts. I mean, anybody who's seen me campaign during an election, the last thing I'm going to do is tear somebody down. Because, look, how can we make this work? How can we come together and make it happen? And to me, that's probably the most important thing that goes on in politics, or should be going on in politics.
South of the border, I think we have an example of what happens with first past the post when it gets on steroids. It's a disaster. It's polarized.
Yeah.
Right. So that's why it's always been important to me. And I thought the Liberals would have been able to go a little further with that. But
their intentions were good. It just they couldn't come to a consensus. And one of the things you mentioned down in the States, what they do down in the States is, and we don't do here, is the ridings. It's not up to the elected officials to decide what the ridings are. In the States, you see some weird ridings.
Gerrymandering.
Gerrymandering is exactly they set it up so that, okay, once I'm in here for life.
Yeah.
And that's not the way it should be.
So we have to wrap things up here, but I want to give you final word. And, because this is your time. Once we get into election mode and that, it'll be very different. Who comes in, what we can talk about. So this is a nice time. Your hope for 2025, and as you go into retirement, and tell us, what you're thinking.
I'm looking forward to retirement. I've had some time to get ready for it. I mean, people ask me, when do you think the next election is going to happen? My guess was May of 2023, so I was way off as far as that goes. But when you look at what's coming up, I've been approached by a few people, a few private companies to sit on their board, and lots of nonprofits as well. I think for 6 months I'm just going to lay low and take it easy. But overall, I just wish the next candidate, the next MP, well, regardless of party. I just hope it's someone who represents the party or the riding well in Ottawa, and that we can all do well by that. Because I think, to me, it's about making sure that Ottawa knows what's going on here in Nipissing-Timiskaming.
Well, I'd like to thank you for your representation of the riding. I've known you for most of that time. And while we don't always agree with each other, for sure, I think you represented the area with as much integrity as anybody has, and more than most. So thank you very much.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate that. Those are kind words.
Yes. Anthony, thank you. This has been another Echo Essentials podcast.
I'm Dave Dale.
And I'm Scott Clark. Thanks for joining us.